Teachers at Westbourne Academy in Ipswich are on strike again today in a dispute over pupil behaviour. It follows 2 days of walkouts last week, with claims staff have had scissors and chairs thrown at them. Bosses at the high school say a new behaviour system will be brought in after half term, and a new vice principal for behaviour and pastoral care is joining.
Coming up on the show today, teachers at a Suffolk high school are back on the picket line, making a stand against poor student behaviour. They were also on strike last week. Do you remember this from last week's Wayne Bavin at breakfast?
Staff have had scissors thrown at them, they've had chairs thrown at them, and whilst some of this behaviour has been dealt with proportionately, some staff feel that it has not, and that the repetitiveness of it is not acceptable.
Many of you were shocked last week when you heard that, and that's why some teachers at Westbourne High are striking again today. Why do children behave like this? Is this more of a widespread problem than we think? How about when you were at school? Did you misbehave? Did you have pupils in your class that misbehaved and were disrespectful and abusive towards teachers? Right, 7:08. Some teachers at a school in Ipswich are really at the end of their tether when it comes to poor student behaviour. Teachers at Westbourne Academy striked for 2 days last week, saying the situation had reached an all-time low and needs to be highlighted before it gets even worse. They've resorted to strike action again today, and it will continue into tomorrow as well. And it's all to highlight the inefficiency of management to tackle poor student behaviour. Dr. Beth Mosley is a clinical psychologist and author and joins us now. Good morning, Beth.
Good morning.
We heard from teachers last week on this programme who were on the picket line. They'd had chairs thrown at them. They'd had scissors thrown at them by pupils. Teachers striking. First of all, are you surprised or shocked that teachers are on the picket line because of this?
Well, it's on the news, so it's probably a bit surprising, isn't it? We don't often hear of this. And I think my experience of working in schools, it must be a massive decision for a teacher to make to go on the picket line. So I do feel for them being in a situation where they're obviously feeling distressed and obviously quite anxious about coming into work, having to make this decision. You certainly don't come into teaching for the money. I'm sure you come into it, to make a difference and to support young people. So this must have been a very hard decision.
This is going to be a difficult conversation because I don't think there's any right or wrong answers here, and I don't really know which direction this is going to go in. For me, when I was at school, there was accepted behaviour, and there was unacceptable behaviour. And if your behaviour was unacceptable, you were called out. So if I'd have thrown a chair at a teacher, I'd have been suspended. There'd have been no two ways about it. It'd have been zero tolerance. I'd have been suspended. Things have changed a lot. I'm 51 years old, Beth.
I was 50 yesterday, so I'm
Happy
with
birthday.
you. Yes, it's not easy, is it? It's a changing world we're living in, and I think it's difficult for all of us, parents included. There's much more emphasis on the relationships we have with our children than zero tolerance. And I guess stories like this make some people question that, particularly people who perhaps grew up in that more zero tolerant environment. I guess behaviour tells us something about what's going on for young people. And often it's a bit like an iceberg. What you see on the tip isn't what is necessarily underneath. And so I guess for us in society, for us as parents, teachers, it's asking what does this symbolise? Why are young people? And it's, remember, a small proportion of young people who are perhaps struggling in the school environment or behaving in this way, which is going to create challenges for other students in that environment too.
It comes down to teachers, surely, and parents to make sure that children are behaving in a correct manner, doesn't it? Is it down to the school to teach them manners? Is it down to a school to teach them good behaviours? It must start at home. It's teamwork, surely.
it has to be teamwork. It takes a village to raise a child. And I think that's a challenge for us as parents, isn't it? For many parents, they're under lots of economic pressure, so they maybe don't have as much time with their children. I think we're struggling sometimes. Parents these days are struggling to have the confidence to implement boundaries. I talk a lot about this in my work, the two hands of parenting, warmth and boundaries. And in order to feel safe and to work and live in a calm environment, you need those boundaries. So young people do need boundaries. When they go into adolescence, they are very naturally going to push against them. And as parents and as educators, our role in supporting them to manage their emotions, regulate their emotions, and also develop some flex, because as our children go into adolescence, we are going to have to be more flexible about what they can and can't do, because developmentally, we're preparing them for adulthood. So I think it's complicated, but creating consistency across what we're doing at home and what we're doing at school can be a challenge. So if a child has got quite a lot of freedom at home, perhaps there aren't as many boundaries at home, and they come into the school environment and there's lots more boundaries, then that's quite a challenge potentially for them to manage.
Listen, thank you. Dr. Beth Mosley, clinical psychologist and author. Teachers at Westbourne High are back on the picket line today, making a stand against poor student behaviour. Many people would say teachers go into a profession to make a difference. They don't go into a profession to be abused. I don't know what the answer is here, as we heard there from Beth. Teenagers need boundaries. What do you think? Does this start at home? Does it start with parents? Is it down to the school to teach a child to behave and give them good manners, or is it down to a school to educate them from an academia point of view? Now, we've been talking this morning about the behaviour of pupils in our high schools and our primary schools as well. Teachers at Westbourne High in Suffolk are striking again this week. They did 2 days of striking last week because of the behaviour of children and the inefficiency of the management team at the school to deal with it. Things have changed. It's 35 years since I was at high school. Reg has been a teaching assistant for the last 28 years, and he's got in touch with us this morning. Morning, Reg.
Good morning. I'm just recovering from hearing Peppa Pig again. 3 grandchildren. I'm not over the trauma of it over the years.
Kids love Peppa Pig, don't they?
Oh, they do, yeah.
Yeah, we get sick of it.
I say 3 times a day. Yeah, I don't.
Listen, Reg, you've worked in education for almost 30 years. You must have seen the way children's behaviours changed over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I certainly have, and there's multiple reasons, and it's not just one system will fit all, unfortunately. My style is to get to know every child, to get to know the families, and then where you need to put an arm around the shoulder, or where you need to be a little bit more tougher. But unfortunately, the biggest challenge schools have got, especially since privatisation into academies, is the constant cutback of budgets. So teachers haven't got the support staff. The NQTs, newly qualified teachers, really being put in positions that should be for experienced staff, but they're cheaper. And also, people often say, well, it's down to the parents. Well, I've encountered, and I've taught parents of the children who I've taught as well, and sometimes those parents were never given the skills by their parents. So
it's a knock-on effect. Yeah, it's a generation thing. Listen, you've been in education nearly 30 years. Are you seeing a change in teachers as well? Teachers coming into education, do they have a different attitude than they did, say, 15 years ago?
They all want to do it. Every person I've ever worked with, and I've obviously worked with many, we all do this job not for the money. We do it because we care, because we want to help children. But education's in a mess, Wayne. And I'll be quite honest with you, there are so many teachers and young teachers who are coming in and wanting to get out because the pressure on them is just immense. We've just had SATs at all primary schools. Teachers there are worried sick about what the result's going to come back like. It is, I'm a tough old cookie, so I just get on with the job and do it. But teachers are under too much pressure, and that is totally down to the government. The governments live in a different world.
Reg,
And
we'll leave it.
Education's got to change in this country, and quick.
We'll leave it there, but thank you so much for calling. Some powerful statements there. We'll have more on this story later in the show. We'll hear from a mum, actually, from Suffolk, to find out how she deals with her children and what her expectations are like for them at school. 0800 1412121 if you would like to join the conversation. Welcome to the show. Coming up then, in just a moment, we continue to chat about the teachers, or some teachers, that are striking today at Westbourne Academy. They were on strike for 2 days last week. This is down to pupils' behaviour, with one teacher telling us she's had scissors and chairs thrown at her. We'll chat to a mum soon of young children, of teenagers. Is this kind of behaviour acceptable? Does this kind of behaviour, does this need to be tackled by parents and not schools? Earlier, Reg gave us a call. He's been in the education system, working as a teaching assistant for 28 years, and he told us this.
We all do this job not for the money. We do it because we care, because we want to help children. Education's in a mess, mate. And I'll be quite honest here, there are so many teachers and young teachers who are coming in and wanting to get out. Because the pressure on them is just immense.
Back to our top story this morning, pupil behaviour. Some teachers at a school in Ipswich are at the end of their tether, literally, when it comes to poor student behaviour. Teachers at Westbourne Academy striked for 2 days last week, saying the situation had reached an all-time low. We were on the picket line with the teachers last week. Do you remember this clip that we played you out after we'd spoken to a teacher? And this is quite alarming.
Staff have had scissors thrown at them, they've had chairs thrown at them, and whilst some of this behaviour has been dealt with proportionately, some staff feel that it has not, and that the repetitiveness of it is not acceptable.
Teachers are striking today and tomorrow to highlight the inefficiency of management to tackle the student behaviour. Where does the guilt lie with this? Where do your sympathies lie on this? Are you with the teachers? Are you with the parents? Are you with the students whose behaviour is often prompted by something? They don't just act this way for no reason. There has to be something behind it. We're more aware now of young people's mental health. Heather Chandler is a mum of 4. She lives at Kesgrave near Ipswich. Let's chat to Heather. Morning, Heather.
Morning.
This isn't a case of laying blame. I think the word sympathies is a very good word here. Where do your sympathies lie? Is it with the teachers, the parents, or the pupils, the students?
I have to admit, I have sympathy for all 3 areas there, because I just don't think that it's one area that is responsible. You know, there are parents that don't do enough with their children, don't install discipline at home, but then there could also be like mitigating factors for that reason as well. You know, they could be living in challenging circumstances, and perhaps supporting their children's behaviour might not be top of their agenda, especially with the cost of living and things like this, if you're at work. But then the teachers should not be having to have that sort of behaviour at school. You know, as a teacher, you expect to deal with behaviour and discipline, but, you know, having scissors thrown at you and chairs and being worried that every time you go into work, you're going to be at the end, you know, receiving violence, that's not acceptable either.
So are you saying, Heather, that behavioural issues that aren't dealt with perhaps at home, or issues at home, can often carry through into a pupil's school life?
Absolutely. But then I've also known myself friends who have got children whose behaviour is not acceptable at home and at school, and the parents are doing their absolute best, you know, to try and support their child through all the services that are out there. And often they're neurodivergent, but might not have been diagnosed yet. There's an enormous waiting list for children to be diagnosed with you know, autism, ADHD. So these parents are also working in the dark, and the schools are working in the dark because they haven't been given the support strategies that being assessed would provide them. So, you know, it's not every parent's fault. It's not the school's fault every time, and it's not always the child's fault. Sometimes it's just, you know, but then there are situations where the parents have got responsibility, and I do think sometimes the school has responsibility, and obviously the child does too.
Heather Chandler, mum of 4, who lives in Kesgrave. We're chatting about pupils' behaviour this morning because teachers at Westbourne Academy are striking again this week due to the behaviour from students. You've got 4 kids, Heather, aged 11 to 23. You've told us that they've been excluded from time to time. I remember being a kid. If I was mucked about at school if I was rude to a teacher, which I wasn't very often. But on one occasion when I was, I got a right rollicking off my mum and dad. I got a rollicking off the school as well, and I accepted that because I was in the wrong. How have you dealt with situations with your kids?
Exactly the same way. You know, when I was called, my eldest was excluded for being very rude to a teacher, not just once, repeatedly. They'd given her some warnings beforehand. And they call you up and they tell you what's happened. And she was punished at home. And then when she went far out of line, she was grounded. So, and I remember the teacher being really grateful that I was doing something at home. She said, it's not always the case. Sometimes, the parents come and give us a lot of attitude and tell us it's our problem, not theirs. And I was like, well, we've got to work together on this. It's not acceptable. And it's exactly the same with my son when he was naughty once so far.
Do you think it's more of a widespread problem than we think then? I know Westbourne Academy are striking, but do you think this goes on in every school up and down not just the county, but the country?
I do think it happens in all schools, but just to different degrees. I think sometimes it depends on the leadership of the school as well and how they approach it. Because, the leadership have also got responsibilities as teachers, and they've got a safe working environment. And I think if they are using the disciplinary methods available to them fully, then they are removing some of the challenging problems. But that often means a removal of a child from school. So that's how they've solved the issue. They've taken the child out, but then that child has got nowhere else to go, or it might go to a pupil referral unit. So I just kind of sometimes feel another high school, which then you're passing the problem on to another school that might not have the resources to cope. So
there's no easy answer to this, is there? There really isn't. We heard from Reg earlier, who's been in education for nearly 30 years. He said it's down to all the cutbacks and the pressures on school. They just don't have the budgets to deal with this kind of behaviour. Teachers are stressed. Head teachers are under pressure. Do you agree with that?
I totally do, because you also got to remember as well as it's not always continuity with the teachers. You've got all the lessons as a different teacher in each lesson. Sometimes you've got 2 to 3 teachers teaching one subject to the same child. So it's not like they often track the behaviour as well, if that makes sense. So a child could be being really badly behaved in one class, but be fine in the next class. And then if that's not being identified as a current problem, then they don't pick up on it as well as they could.
Listen, Heather, thank you for chatting. Heather Chandler, mum of 4. What do you think? Where do your sympathies lie on this? Bad behaviour from children at school towards teachers. Are you with the teachers who are striking at Westbourne Academy? Are you with the parents? Is it the school's responsibility to deal with that bad behaviour, or is it down to the parents? Or are your sympathies with the students whose behaviour is often prompted by something? There's some reason why they're behaving in that way. It's breakfast. It is BBC Suffolk. This morning we've been chatting about the behaviour of students in our high schools and our primary schools as well. There's teachers on strike at Westbourne Academy today and tomorrow due to poor behaviour by pupils and the lack of intervention from the management at the school. Lots of you getting in touch. John in Ipswich doesn't want to come on and chat to us. He says the teacher strike, he gets very wound up by it. It's the parents. He blames the parents. 90% of it anyway, says John. His father would have killed him if he'd have behaved like that at school. The problem is the upbringing. A lot of parents are lazy and obese now and don't want to do anything. I don't think the size of them, John, makes them bad parents. If someone's overweight, that doesn't make you a bad parent. That's maybe a little bit harsh. Thank you for the call. And the same. If I'd have thrown a chair at a teacher or threatened a teacher with a pair of scissors, I'd have been in so much trouble at home. I wouldn't have been allowed out for a month. More messages coming through. Hi, good morning to anonymous, no name on this. I was at Springfield School during the war and Northgate School. They used the cane. You were in no doubt as to what happened if you misbehaved. There wasn't any kind of today's misbehaviour back then. Haven't we moved on from that though? Is that really the answer here, to hit someone with a piece of wood across the back of their legs or their hand? Would that really correct behaviour? I don't know. I just think that's maybe a step back or two. A lot of people would think that. 0800 141 2121. We'll chat to someone else who's contacted the programme, Ali in Felixstowe, who works in the teaching profession, the education. We'll chat to her in about 10 minutes' time, get her thought. One thing that's getting a lot of interest this morning, lots of you getting in touch, a lot of the messages we can't read out, actually. You have very strong views on this. Some teachers are striking striking at Westbourne Academy in Suffolk today because of the poor behaviour from pupils there and the management at the school not dealing with it. They were on strike last week and we were on the picket line, and one striking teacher told us this.
Staff have had scissors thrown at them, they've had chairs thrown at them, and whilst some of this behaviour has been dealt with proportionately, some staff feel that it has not, and that the repetitiveness of it is not acceptable.
You don't go to work to get that kind of abuse. You know, many people say being a teacher isn't the best paid job. You teach because you want to make a difference, not be abused. Where do your sympathies lie? Is it with the teachers, the striking teachers? Is it with the parents? Is it with the students whose behaviour is often prompted by something? What is the reason behind this? Rach called earlier.
We all do this job not for the money. We do it because we care, because we want to help children. Education's in a mess, Wayne. And I'll be quite honest here, there are so many teachers and young teachers who are coming in and wanting to get out because the pressure on them is just immense.
28 years he's worked in the teaching profession. Young teachers now sign up, then want to get out, says Reg. Ali's been a teaching assistant for 20 years. She's in Felixstowe. Good morning, Ali.
Good morning, Wayne.
What are your experiences? What are the reasons for this? Why are students, and this is a widespread problem, it's not just Westbourne Academy, why are students behaving like this? Why are young people being abusive to people who are teaching them?
Well, I mean, there's so many outside influences on these students, you know, like gang. Well, I'm not saying it's gangs, but that's one possible reason. Their home life as well, if they're not disciplined. You know, like I said, if I was in trouble at school, my word, my mum would have killed me, you know. And you have respect for teachers, but it's just, we're so limited as to how we can discipline students now. And it's just, and they know that. And it's a fight and a losing battle.
So in the past and I did get a clip around the ear many times from my teacher, and I told my mum, and my mum said, well, you probably deserved it. You can't do that now.
No.
We've had a lot of people getting in touch, Ali, about the cane and that kind of way of chastising people, which was around when I was at school. But isn't that a step back? Is that a step back, would you say?
What do you mean a step back?
Bringing that back into schools, would you support that or not?
Well, yeah. Well, that'd never happen, would it? It would just never. No, I don't think children should be hit as such, but it's got to be a solution to this because it's getting worse. Over the 20 years I've been there, it's worse and worse and worse. And I think social media has a really big part in it as well.
You make a good point. It's different, isn't it? It's a different generation. Yeah. Our young people are under more pressure probably than we were when we were younger with social media and their social lives. Have you ever been a victim of abuse in your job?
Yeah.
And how did you deal with it? How did you deal with that?
It was hard, but I have to say the school were amazing, and they did support me through it. But it was a shock. I was like, whoa, that's never happened. You know, like 20 years, it's never ever happened. But the school did, in fairness.
Was that physical
really
abuse or verbal abuse, Ali?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Physical abuse?
Both.
Oh, go on. So you think it's the times we live in? You think children are under pressure, and parents need to stand up, not teachers?
Yeah, absolutely. It cuts both ways. It does cut both ways. You know, you have to. Parents and schools should have a good working relationship together.
Listen, Ali, thank you for the call. Ali in Felixstowe, who's really hit the nail on the head when she mentioned social media and the pressures that brings and the pressures of young people's social lives now as well. Another anonymous message coming in, a message that says, my daughter-in-law is a newly qualified teacher. She works in a big city school up north, and she's already had a month off in the last year with mental health issues. The children just walk out of class without permission, and the head lets them do it. 0800 141 2121. Have you got the answers? We've been chatting this morning about the teachers, or some teachers at Westbourne Academy, who have been striking today due to the behaviour of pupils and the lack of management direction, really. So many of you getting in touch, very strong opinions throughout the programme. Let's take one more call on this, and apologies if we didn't get to speak to you this morning. It's difficult to fit everybody in, but Yvonne is in Ufford, and you used to be a teaching assistant, Yvonne, didn't you?
Morning, Wayne. Yes, I used to be a teaching assistant 10 years ago.
Now, we've been chatting this morning about where your sympathies lie. Is it with the teachers? Is it with the parents? Is it with the unruly students whose behaviour has to be prompted by something? Is this a generational thing? Times are so different than they were 10, 20 years ago. Tell us about your experience, Yvonne.
I think my sympathies are with the teachers, yes. Even 10 years ago, I was getting children brought into school by the parents and going, you deal with them because I can't. You know, and you're thinking, well, and then you're getting kids going, oh, well, I played Call of Duty last night till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. But this is in the primary school, and you're not allowed to have Call of Duty till you're 16, 18. So, you know, if parents are allowing them to play games, not, you know, it just doesn't seem to be any discipline at home now. If I'd have done half the things that kids do today, I wouldn't be here. My dad would have killed me.
We've heard this throughout the programme today about how you have to set boundaries in home life. Parents have to make rules, and there has to be that line in the sand, and if you cross it, you get into bother. And I'm the same. I've said it throughout the morning, Yvonne. You know, if I'd have done, if my behaviour, not very often, you know, I wasn't a rebellious child, but if I stepped out of line, I got a clip round the ear, and I'm not saying that's right, and it shouldn't be right. And I did get the cane at school as well, once, Yvonne. And I'm not saying we should bring that back. So that's probably, you know, a lot of people would say that's you know, 3 steps forward, 5 steps back.
No, we shouldn't bring that back.
Do you not have sympathy? Do you not have sympathy with our young people? Life is so difficult for them now.
It is, but most of it's social media, isn't it? Now, I've got a nephew that's 13 that I've just took away on holiday, and he never come off his computer, his laptop. You know, and all you got were, you know. But
listen, I've got a teenage son. My son talks like that. That's what they do.
But
that's all they know, isn't it? But that's all they know, Yvonne, isn't it? That's their world. The people they knock about with at school, their friends, that's their world and their environment. So they have so much more to deal with in 2025 than, say, I did back in the 80s or 90s. Would you agree?
Yeah, of course. And there's no other way, is there? What I mean is there's social media's everywhere, and it's constant. You know, they won't ring up the mate and say, do you want to come out to play football or whatever? It's on the mobile, you know, texting rather than, you know, speaking.
There's no
conversation.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying it's exactly that. It's a lack of social skills, isn't it?
Yeah, the social aspect's gone.
Yeah.
No.
We haven't got the answers, Yvonne, and I'm sure we'll chat about this a lot more. Would you know, if you were starting out again on your career, would you opt for being a teaching assistant or even a teacher?
No, I got out.
You got out.
I'm now in social care, which is.
Here's a conversation for another day, Yvonne. Listen, thank you for listening, and thank you for getting involved. It's been an interesting conversation today, hasn't it?
And thank you for everything you do.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for getting involved in this morning's conversation. This morning, we've been chatting about teachers at a Suffolk high school who are back on the picket line today, making a stand about poor student behaviour. We asked you, where do your sympathies lie? Are you with the teachers, the parents, the students? What's prompting this behaviour? Here's what you thought.
We all do this job not for the money. We do it because we care, because we want to help children. Education's in a mess, Wayne, and I'll be quite honest here, there are so many teachers and young teachers who are coming in and wanting to get out. because the pressure on them is just immense.
I feel like if I was in trouble at school, my word, my mum would have killed me, you know. And you have respect for teachers, but it's just, we're so limited as to how we can discipline students now, and they know that. And it's a fight and a losing battle.
Most of it's social media, isn't it? Now, I've got a nephew that's 13 that I've just took away on holiday, and he never come off his computer, his laptop. There's no other way, is there? What I mean is, there's social media's everywhere, and it's constant. You know, they won't ring up the mate and say, do you want to come out for a play football or whatever? It's on the mobile.
It's not easy, is it? It's a changing world we're living in, and I think it's difficult for all of us, parents included. There's much more emphasis on the relationships we have with our children than zero tolerance. And I guess stories like this make maybe some people question that, particularly people who perhaps grew up in that more zero tolerant environment. I guess behaviour tells us something about what's going on for young people, and often it's a bit like an iceberg. You know, what you see on the tip isn't what is necessarily underneath.
Thank you for getting involved today.